Um, I'm happy to welcome you to the first session, and all three of us all four of us are prepared in our group, and I would like to introduce you a little bit the three speakers and tell you what is going on in the next hour and 15 minutes. At the moment, I unfortunately can just see myself. So if that is possible, that we go back to the that is more convenient to me to see all of you. Thanks, Jonas. So the first panel is dedicated to pioneering work. And we invited three people who are engaged in pioneering work. And for an introduction, I would like to ask them, what is your main concern with your projects, and why did this project become necessary to you? And a bit unusual for some of our, or for a part of our religious culture, what would your mission, when would your mission be fulfilled? These two questions should give us the chance to go a little bit deeper in the projects of Rosy. And Rosy is coming from Italy, and she initiated the project Parole Ostili. It's a movement of responsible digital citizenship in Italy. The second is Kike Delgado from TMB Network. He is a creative consultant.
Okay, now it works.
Hi?
Yeah. Is it working now?
Yeah.
But now I can't hear them.
Ah, okay. That was not me who was asked for something. So Kike Delgado is a creative consultant for religious organizations, experienced designer. I'm very curious to hear about your work. And the third speaker is Erkki Sutinen, professor of computer science from Finland, University of Turku, and moved to Namibia 2019, where he set up an overseas campus. And I guess the organizers did a good job to choose the three of you. And I'm really keen to hear about your projects. And if someone likes to have more information on the biographical side, you can go to the website. This is also recommended. I mean, it's a wonderful website you prepared for us for this conference. So if it's possible that Rosy Russo, that you start now with your short impulse for us.
Okay. Can I share a screen? Okay. Hello, everyone. And thank you for this invitation to share my experience and the Parole Ostili experience. A premise.
Rosy, one moment. If you want to share the PowerPoint or whatever you have prepared for us, you should use the screen sharing.
Okay, okay. It's okay.
Yes,
it's
you should do that for yourself.
Thank you. Thank you. A premise, I don't speak English very well, and you will notice it right away, but I still hope to be able to pass on some content and above all my passion, okay? Parole Ostili, it's a social awareness project against the use of hostile language, and encourages us to redefine the way we use the internet and to choose our words carefully and responsibility, without ever forgetting that words are important. How? And now I share my... it's okay. Do you... The manifesto? No?
At the moment, the screen is black in my view, but might be that the screen sharing started already, but is not
No, stop.
finalized.
I returned. I want to, so, okay. Is not important. Sure. Now or nothing?
So, if you can hand it over per email to
I
you.
want to is the manifesto of non-hostile communication. If you can share this about from the sito, eventually. Okay. In fact, is in the chat. Okay, you find it in the chat. Okay, 6 years ago, with a great team effort, the manifesto of non-hostile communication was born. The theme is the relationship between people, fundamental. They are the heart of our life, and it carries with the theme of words, which must be used with care. They are important, and the style you choose to use, remembering that diversity is richness, and the web is a crazy place of diversity. But social networks are not longer just a tool. They are a culture to inhabit, and we Christians must be aware of this. 6 years ago, with a great team effort, the manifesto of non-hostile communication was born. I have involved thousands of people in a reflection on the conscious use of the network, and I did it through the network and everyone bringing his contribution. I made a synthesis and then the 10 principles of the manifesto were born. Simple, immediate, almost banal. The principles were written to help us live the network better, to manage hate speech, social networks, communities, a charter to reduce, control, and fight against negative language online. That manifesto is now available in 36 languages, signed by more than 500 mayors in Italy, and available in 7 areas: for the world of politics, companies, sport, institution, science, kindergarten, and inclusion. We involve more than 1 million children in school a year by offering lots of free teaching material. You can find it hanging in school classes, in companies' office, in gyms, in waiting room of a municipality, or in the oratory of a parish. This winter, we did a beautiful project in a juvenile prison. Parents write us telling us that they gave their children the first telephone, also giving them the manifesto to teach them how to inhabit the network and the relationship in general. I'd like, when will my mission be fulfilled, I'd like to tell you that we are at the end, which is almost finished. Unfortunately, when you work on people, on education, you know when you sow, but you don't know when you reap. It will be accomplished when we learn to manage conflicts, when we use the words carefully, when phenomena such as cyberbullying, hate speech, fake news, revenge porn, body shaming, catfishing, etc., will be overcome. I think it will, unfortunately, still take some time. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your presentation, and I will hand over to Erkki to follow up, please.
Sorry, could you
Okay, thanks.
share your screen, please?
Oh, yes, 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 also.
Rosy, can you stop the screen sharing, please?
Ah, okay, okay.
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 Erkki, could you start?
Yes,
Could you hear me or?
Yes, I can hear you.
Wonderful.
And you can hear me, is it?
Yes, that's good.
Okay, wonderful. First, I couldn't hear you, you couldn't hear me, and then I couldn't hear you, but it seems to be that it's now both ways. So sorry. Anyway, regards from Namibia, I'm Erkki Sutinen. I'm leading what we call Future Technology Lab here in Windhoek. It's my university is University of Turku in Finland, where I work as a computer science professor. It's our remote campus, or we call it plug-in campus here in the global south. And the idea of the whole campus is actually to identify like African challenges and opportunities, and then co-design solutions to these challenges. And we want to work particularly in the rural areas where people are really struggling with their lives. We want to find talented people, give them a voice, and release their potential. And I would like to particularly talk about one of the projects which we started about a year ago. We call it street engineering. It was in Opuo, very close to Angolan border, where there are also a lot of Angolan refugees. It's one of the poorest towns in Namibia, which otherwise is a pretty mid-income country, but the gap between the rich and the poor is one of the biggest in the world. So then when we were just there exploring the town, we met with what we call street engineers, 3-4 young people of about 25 years old, and they have been running their company called Kunene General Company for about 5 years, and they have been working fixing bikes, and they started to work on these toy cars, like the toy cars that you see, but they had much higher expectations. They wanted to start the big toy production in Africa. They wanted to integrate robotics into their toys. They wanted to come up, to the world level, because we know that much too often Africa is just behind other places. It's just copying things that are already done elsewhere. And one of the things that the Opuo street engineers said that they want to, as I interpreted it, they said that they want to show who they really are. They wanted to show their potential. They wanted to show their dignity. And they wanted, as in their words, they said that they want to show that even a black man can make cars. And that's quite a big statement. And it's a very frank statement. They have almost nothing there, they are collecting like waste materials. And not just, I was there a week ago, and they had been asked by the local governor's office to actually make a real size car in 1 week, which actually they did. In 1 week, they managed to make a car which they can drive on, and they were so proud to show it. So so that's about it. And making toys might sound very, very far away from digital theology, but what is key there is that much too often technology in Africa is only used, but it's not created. It's a white man's technology, which somehow reaches the global south, but it's nothing that people can do. And it also means that people's, how could I say, the potential that they were created with never can actually concretize. So this is the key thing, and what we would like to achieve. Actually, we would like to achieve a small toy factory there in this town of Opuo, and maybe later a bigger one, where actually they can create toys by which kids can express themselves, by which people can, young kids can create, which they feel that they are their toys. They are not just crap which comes from sweat factories from around the world, but they are like Africanized, African design with African creativity. And later on, I will comment a little bit, like, you know, what you know this would mean, you know, from the technology point of view. The recent article that we wrote about that is called "Liberation by Robotics." So it follows Paulo Freire's ideas of pedagogy of the oppressed, so which is very close to theology of liberation. So we wanted to identify, by working with them, talking with them, you know, their limits. And we identified several limits, not only cultural limits, they were limits set by their families, by traditions, by their friends, by many things that actually prevent them to grow to their potential. And now we have also identified many ways where technology can actually help them to be truly liberated. So, and when finally we get the first products to the world markets, you know, from their toy factory, then I think that we have achieved a lot. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Erkki, for your insights, and yeah, impressive. We are really global group, so let's see what Kike Delgado is presenting us now from South America.
Thank you so much. Can I share my screen? Yeah, thank you so much. Can you see my screen now?
Unfortunately not. Same issue as with Rose. Oh, now we're good.
Oh, yeah. Okay. So I will try to go briefly in this journey of experience design. I'm from Mexico, and maybe you can relate with my experience as a teenager and as a young in the church some years ago. The dynamics and the possibilities for this time for, I would say, anyone in the church, it's always something really hopeful and open, and sometimes these narratives of prophetic prophecy and liberation doesn't come earlier in different contexts here in Latin America. So my journey started actually after the World Youth Day in Rio in 2013, when I realized that creativity it's like a source for making revolutions irresistible. So I tried at the beginning with a group of friends to start this movement, just to change the narratives of how we approach not only to divinity, but actually to humanity, and to get closer to a more compassionate way to address our challenges of growing up, but at the same time finding our vocation and many things that different pastoral works in the area of teenagers and young adults try to do. But later, when we bring with this topic of Take Me Back as a way to say, let's go to basics, let's back to basics, we realize that many people doesn't felt like represented or aligned to what we were saying or what we were showing in terms of Catholic communication or just like a way of presenting. So later we created this community, this network of Take Me Backers. That's how we call it. And within this small community, some creatives from different fields start to propose different approaches to do this pastoral work. And it was interesting because 5 years ago, I started like following this passion of researching cultural trends for consumption in global spaces, in local context, and trying to translate all these trends of the world with a compassionate gaze, just to find keys, like for cultural translation. And as I say here, trying to use design as a cultural transformation catalyst, just to bring back some values, but at the same time, open the horizons for the people within the church and of course outside. some of the brands, friends, organizations that we are working with at this moment. But this you can find in the website. One of the things we do in this research of trends is really trying to look into different fields of architecture, fashion, culture, graphic design, music, what is happening in cinema, and translate all the values that are more relatable in the culture, not directly the aesthetics, but the values and the attitudes behind, into contents for digital spaces. Actually, we were really blessed to work with the Dicastery of Communication for the Synod project. And many of these values of 2020 and 2021, we're talking about like revolution and liberation in terms of like many creatives in different parts of the world. So we brought all these attitudes to the contents and the disruptive way to show a different way of beauty and a different way of disruption in an official page such as the Synod. Some of these are only the collages we made just to understand where the culture in a global aspect is going. And the things we concretize is to create experience for young people now in the virtual space, such like this. For example, this one was about go deep in the practice of Ignatian spirituality, but not from a catechetical perspective, but really trying to engage with culinary traditions here in Latin America. So we developed like a complete experience with recipe books and flavors and different things to approach the things that matter in our lives, like grief. And actually this happened exactly in 2020. We were ready before the pandemic hit, but it was really interesting to have like this multisensorial workshop on discernment through food. And the results were really impressive to talk about images of God through chocolate, through ginger, through salads, and through different things that in a context of a global missing of senses, we were really through digital spaces enabling people to gather together with these different approaches. One other example, just to clarify or to concretize what we do. This experience was similar, but instead of going through Ignatian spirituality and food, we gather like different contexts in the liturgical field. We were talking about Advent, but trying to inculturate better and not romanticize Christmas in a context of pandemic. We really try to approach the reality of migrants here in Mexico and Latin America, and partnering with different organizations, we get to the point of creating an experience where we invited people to walk and run and gather like some miles that were translated into like a shared and empathetic experience, but also with the subscription for this program, we were able to buy 180 pair of sneakers to donate to this organization. So it was interesting to gather like the need of engaging in a digital space, but with an empathetic approach to this reality. And I think this is one of the approaches for me to be like more prophetic and liberating, just to frame and to open what is happening in your world and not isolating. Regarding to the question, just to conclude my first participation, I have like two major concerns. One is taken from Pedro Rupe. I'm taking his words. He says, "I'm not afraid of the new world that emerges. I fear rather that we have little or nothing to offer to this world, little or nothing to say or to do. I'm afraid that we might give yesterday's answers to tomorrow's problems. And most of all, I fear waiting with arms folded and doing nothing for fear of failing." I'm trying to translate this into a proactive way of approaching my concern. I try to offer 3 questions when I train people, creative people or communicators, just to really understand what is our role as creatives and as a prophets in these crazy times. And I have just 3 points. I think it's necessary, and that the times are calling us and the Lord is calling us to be the creatives who express complex emotions and realities and not getting in the basic way of transmitting faith, but really enabling like another kind of vocabulary, not only in terms of spiritual journeys, but really in terms of humanity. Second, be the creatives who shows the people how things could be. I always remember and keep like the learnings from Richard Rohr from the Center for Action and Contemplation. And when he opens up about this prophetic way of dreaming, demanding, and co-creating new futures, I think creatives and communicators literally can do this in a concrete way. And last but not least, a call to be the creative who reveals truth and beauty. But in this almost 10 years, I think my approach to truth and beauty has changed. I would say at the beginning of my journey, it was something more stylistic and something only for making things beautiful and attractive and relevant. But I think in this moment, with all the crises we are living, beauty and truth really needs to be also compassionate and liberating. So that's my approach, that's my concerns, and I will be really happy to continue listening and sharing.
Thanks so much, Kike, and or muchas gracias. And I would like to give a little time and space for reacting to your three presentations. So if anyone has a question or comments on that, what we heard, this is the place now for it. We prepared some more questions and Kike just started or already started to answer them. I will refer to that in a moment, but just now a minute for Q&A. Is there anyone? Axel Siegemund.
Yes, thank you. Thank you all for your wonderful presentations among this intercultural setting. My question is to Erkki. As you have mentioned that you're working with street engineering in Namibia. When I visited Namibia last year, also the UNAM campus there, I've observed that it is still the situation that the ethnic structure of the Namibian society influences the access to technology. And my question is whether you also have observations in this way. I've understood that you are working in the northern part of Namibia, maybe with Ubuntu people. When we visited the university, for example, it was visible that politics are made by the Ovambo people, and members from other ethnic groups stay behind or keep silent in the discussions. And this is my question with regard to what you told about street engineering. Is this ethnic structure relevant for the access to technology, to technical and scientific knowledge?
Thank you very much for your questions. I think that your observations very much hold. And I know, for example, that the Finnish missionaries, they have been working with Ovambos for like past 150 years. So now as a Finn myself, I would like to look into other directions. So we work in Northwest, in the Kunene region, that is mostly Damara speaking, Demba speaking, Hereros and Himbas. So, and out of these street engineers, all of them belong to, how could I say, the minorities, or even to my understanding, people who didn't get so many opportunities. Kunene region is also one of the only regions where there is no university at all. So UNAM has 12 campuses. which is a lot, but they are concentrated in other regions. And we also want to come up with kind of another model of a university. So rather than inviting people to the main campus, we actually want to bring the university there. So it's a bit like what Richard Branson at some point said, that Africa should have a traveling, a mobile, a nomad university. So we can talk about metaversity or something like that. So we bring university there, and it's not like our project. We want to do things that, people want there. So we are not responding to what we usually say, that we fulfill needs, which usually are defined in the global north. We rather want to work what people there on the ground, what they want. And then we want to see like the ways that, we can integrate research and education there. And I have to say that the response has been quite amazing. And we want also to come up with something new, like the understanding of university really going from this banking model of education, as Paulo Freire refers to it, like just, transferring knowledge or depositing knowledge into people's minds, to go to this problem posing education, where we start, with understanding and working, co-designing with people, and listening to what they have in mind, what they want. And I think that, these aspects that you raised, they came very well out of the discussions and interviews, with the people. This ethnic structure, it's a small country, 2.5 million people, still about 51 kings in traditional authorities. So it's very fragmented at the same time. And I think that that also, helping people to see what they really can do is something like, supporting also kind of togetherness and respect and dignity among everyone else also who is living in these areas. But thanks for your comment. It's very, very relevant in the context.
Thank you, Otto.
If I may show you the book of Erkki here, Digital Theology, a computer science perspective, is really worth for reading. And I would like to follow up with that, what we have been studying now, going a little bit deeper into also the self-understandings of you as project holders and the audience for themselves. Also, what is the impact of speaking of prophets? If you yourself understand you as a prophet, what is the impact with that? And I thought it would be interesting to hear, like the Old Testament prophets, they didn't only like the task they got, the program they had to fulfill. So to look a little bit critical of your own work. I mean, the 3 projects you presented are lifelong worth to work with. A project is characterized by a start and that it also comes to an end. So let us talk a little bit about this. What vision of sustainability do you have for your projects, and is your project limited? To what it is limited? And also the question, is there something critical which you find in yourself, in your own project? What would you like to change? These 2 questions I would like to give back to our panelists. So who likes to start? Rosy, is that possible? Your turn. We cannot hear you at the moment.
Okay, I try. About pioneers or prophets, for example. I think it's not possible to distinguish the two things. And I tell you that I also feel a bit like a prophet, depending on the aspect and the moment. On the one hand, therefore, I certainly feel like a pioneer because with Parole Stili, I have created something that did not exist and in a completely new participatory way, activating a social change. But on the other hand, I also feel a bit like a prophet, perhaps because I understood the importance of this team before others, and the need to create a tool to work on people's awareness. Experiencing all of this as a missionary call, not offline, but online, on the digital continent. Often I'm not understood, I'm not welcomed, but logged. I love my job, and I have always considered it a great gift from the Lord. Parole Stili, for me, is the possibility of giving back to the Lord the many gifts I have received in my life, bringing good tenderness and cares into the often harsh and violent digital environment. Parole Stili represent this for me. Let's say that I can read the hand of God in everything that happens, in the people I meet, in the opportunity that open up, in the solution that arrive suddenly. Even when 4 years ago, in the midst of 1,000 deadlines, my husband discovered he had cancer, and after a year, he left me and my 4 children. Knowing how to read your own life while still feeling loved by God, well, that makes the difference for me in my job, in my life. Okay.
Thank you, Rosy. Thank you very much. So the question is, who likes to continue, Erkki or Kike? Decide by yourself. Who is first?
Okay, no, I can do maybe this one. Yeah, thanks a lot for your questions, especially when you ask, like, the prophet is someone who does not always like his work and which finds it hard. I remember that the first time I went to Korihas, it's another town where we are working, I said that this certainly is my first and also my definitely last time to visit this poor town. And now I've spent much of my time there anyway. So it's, when you think where you want to be, coming also from Europe, you maybe want to be in a place, where everything works and, you can communicate in the language and the culture that you are comfortable with. And then you go to a completely different kind of environment where there are like, where you can't really understand the culture. You can't communicate as well. I'm very happy that I'm working with the campus coordinator, who is a very young Namibian person, 22 years old, and he belongs to this, how could I say, the ethnic group Damaras, which have had it harder to live in Namibia. So he suggested that we should actually work, there it came from him. And he is also the cultural interpreter, not only language-wise, but attitude-wise, and to see like how this works. So it's very, very hard to see, for example, where people should be liberated from. What are the obstacles? Why things are not happening? And I see that it's also very hard for him to understand it. And when we started in Opua, the other town where the street engineers are, so they said that when they started making the cars, they were like maybe 19, 20, 21. So their parents said that, in this society, a young man of that age should actually keep the goats. It has happened like all the, decades and centuries before, and it should continue. So they took, these young men to traditional healers so that they would cure them, from their dreams, so that they could actually go back to goat keeping. So, so it was very harsh for them. And I think that, when we see the bondages, that would actually constrain people from finding new ways and new roads and make reformations. So it's something like you can think of any development aid project that comes, to that town with various workshops or whatever, or big money, that never ever could liberate people, because, what ties them is these attitudes and traditions and hierarchies that we also, of course, see in the other parts of the society. And I think that the critical thing certainly is that it's not a project, it's an initiative that was actually launched by these people there in Opua. It's like their ownership, where they want to work. And, so it's that is critical, building the trust, getting disappointed, but getting again surprised, being open to their ideas, not just like trying to push our ideas, which so usually happens. So I think it's something like learning. I hope that as a sustainability point of view, the universities should stop thinking in terms of projects. They should actually go back to their original, essence of being there with their understanding, with inspiring by questioning. It's integration to people's realities and making a better world. And I think also that this liberation is not only the liberation of Opua street engineers, it's also the liberation of the academic, people who go there. So we are somehow liberated together when we work together, but it's a long process, and it requires really this being together. It's not only like learning by doing or learning by whatever, it's learning by being. So it goes to that level. Thanks.
Thanks. Thank you. Kike.
Thank you. Well, actually, yesterday, like reflecting in a deeper way in this question, I was really happy to be able to talk from a vulnerable perspective and not from a perspective of creative director or leading like something successful. And I was thinking that, yes, I could say I do consider myself a pioneer, because restlessness and frustration have been a gift, not always pleasant, but just a gift to believe in other styles of leadership and other styles of communication. And ultimately, I would say another style of Christian identity, not rooted in the things the average Catholic culture or Christian culture around the world appreciate or celebrate as like the status quo, but really trying to going back. And that's the motto of our movement. With Take Me Back, we really want to go not only back to the basics in terms of spirituality, but really enabling the body and the relationship with the creation and all the things that are relatable in our context, to find a way to integrate and not to divide or not to polarize the way we navigate the world. Also, I would say the prophet and the pioneer are not always understood in their context. And speaking in a very honest way, many of the projects we run, especially the laboratory, works in a funny way, because we create experiments for ourselves directly from our channels. And once we fail, once we get those understandings and knowledge, then some organizations come and say, hey, I saw your campaign, I saw your movement, I saw your experiment with migrants, with food, with catechesis, with whatever, and I want something similar. And then we develop another experiment, but with some learnings of what we did. And it's interesting because many times the experiences, the names, and the ways we present, since we always avoid to show, like in a very, very religious way, the things we do, many times we are not the most popular, you know, and social media, especially in my generation and the younger ones, it's all about numbers and engagement and popularity and so on. And it's really, really frustrating and complicated, but at the end of the day, it's fulfilling not to do the same things that are in the field. But I think it's the duty of the prophet to really open new paths and new ways to show that maybe this frustration is fruitful in the way of opening new ways to find God, to find our brothers and sisters, and to heal our world. Last, an idea that I have been thinking a lot the last 2-3 years is that our creativity and the task of the prophet need to be more regenerative rather than sustainable. Talking about the economy, but also the work we do, not only thinking about supporting or sustaining, because I really think that our systems in many ways are broken. And being able to reconciliate my team and myself with brokenness, I think open up for me and my creativity to really be regenerative, not fighting anymore with what is bad and is broken, but really trying to heal one step by one step the systems we navigate. That's my thoughts.
Thank you so much, the three of you, for your openness and trust in our community to speak about these things which have a deeper impact also for your work. And I guess we should the second time have a round beneath all of us if there are any questions or comments which came up during these last minutes. There is applause. This is good to see. I mean, if I sum up what we heard, pioneering work, yes, you identified yourself with that. Digital prophets and prophets of the digital was also included in your speeches. And I'm also curious to hear if you would agree to say, yes, it makes sense to name yourself a prophet or to put you in a specific tradition, put yourself in the footsteps of the prophets. All three of you related or brought references to the Christian tradition or theology, and this is of high importance. If we think of what are we doing within our work and how do we interpret it, and is it feasible and thinkable to speak of digital prophets if we present ourselves of prophets of the digital? Okay, there are many ambivalences using technology, in which way, and so on. But I would like to ask you and all of us back, what do you think? Do we need something like a new phase of taking over religious responsibility in the public by using the semantics of the digital prophets. Would be happy to get some feedback on that.
I really like your question, Ilona. So it's a bit maybe hard to think myself as a prophet, but if I think of reading like the Old Testament's prophets and they're calling for liberation and to think in terms of something new. So I think that technology really can break those sort of bondages that limit people. And I think that's very important. And it's something like give people like the voice, because I see that, many people, especially in the global south, in rural areas, they have lost their voice. And I was just reading recently this biography of Stan Lee, one of the key people in the popular culture. And, what I read was that he managed to give the characters voice, a voice that, people at large can identify with. And to see that, the characters express something that will also inspire them, encourage them, give them hope. And, this is what I'm hearing again and again in the rural area, that there is no hope. There is no hope. No one has been bringing the hope. It was quite touching, when we were working in a product of a German project in Korihas. That was a computer classroom, and it was just white walls. And then one of the artists, the street artist, actually had painted in the corner of the room a tree, and he called the tree a tree of good hope. And I think this is coming again and again back to me, that we can build or we can construct these trees or technologies of new or good hope. And then we can maybe also, as academia, we talk about disciplinary work. We talk about discipline, which also can be a bondage. And I think that rather than talking about interdisciplinary or transdisciplinary, we should actually even talk about adisciplinary universities. So I don't know if we really need discipline so much as liberty and liberation in our universities. Just one more comment, when one of the street engineers, we invited him to Windhoek, and then he's the school grade 8 dropout, and he's the key person in this company. So I had him to give a guest lecture at UNAM, and it was a bit new idea also for UNAM that a grade 8 graduate would give a guest lecture. And he of course hadn't given any lectures in his life, and never did any like PowerPoint, anything like that. But we managed to get a very good audience. We even got TV there, and he actually gave the presentation by using HoloLenses. I mean, the most modern technology that university people didn't know of. So I think that was an example that you bring people, give them a voice, and then they can actually challenge also our institutions and use technology to reform, give us a new beginning that we also badly need at universities. Thank you.
Thank you so much. If there is anyone whom I didn't or haven't seen until now, please join in. Otherwise, I would one question back to Erkki. Erkki, because I'm also engaged in liberation theology when I started my studies. I found very much, or it was very influencing to me. But from this, I dare to ask you, if you say to give them a voice. I mean, if we dive in a context rural and completely different from from the surrounding where you came from, I guess, or I can speak of that from my point of view. There are also lots of problems, and if I take over as a theologian, say, okay, prophet, where's the authority? Who gave me the authority to speak like that, or to hope, or to speak of that it's my task to help other people, to give them a voice. So that is unclear to me and problematic, and would like to hear, did you get feedback from people on that in your project in Namibia?
Thanks a lot. Yeah, this is a very good question. So when we started in the other town, Korihas, so Lani, my campus coordinator, he made it very clear that, you know, whatever we do should always have also people coming from abroad and from other contexts, because it also means exposure. It means challenges, because if we don't work over the cultural barriers or over any barrier, so, you know, things just don't change, because, you know, you don't get this inspiration. I think that it's an approach that changes should change both, like all of us who are involved. It should liberate everyone. And, you know, I think that what I learned when I was in Mozambique in a development project, I was chief technical advisor. I figured out that there is no use to give advice if someone is not asking for advice. And I think that much too often we tend to just give advice. But I think that, and then, you know, advice that were not really asked for don't lead to any impact or any change. But I think that in this sort of work where, you know, we work on equal basis, and when we are curious, I think curiosity is one of the key things. But it also requires people from different backgrounds. You know, if you think of academic backgrounds, but also different walks of life. We meet together. I remember at some point, you know, when these people were working in this very shady small place, you know, and then I went to the church, the Lutheran church is there, you know, by the main street, and they had a huge car, you know, yard there, and I asked that, can't the street engineers actually just move to the church yard because there is so much space? So the pastor was very excited, but apparently, you know, nothing happened anyway. So I think that we still have these sort of borders that, you know, in church premises, you know, we shouldn't give like anyway space, you know, it's almost like profane, you know, to give opportunities for young people to develop what they are actually as imago Dei. And I think that we also need to think of what kind of you know, impact it has on being a church. Later on, you know, the street engineers said that they never themselves could have even asked the pastor, you know, that opportunity. So it was like my role to ask, but I think next time we need to ask together. So it's also that if we don't do this together, it remains like external but I think also that this liberation or you know, looking for freedom, it's not easy. It also might lead to something that, you know, we would later like to limit. You know, we first come there with the message of liberation, and then we at some point start to think that now this is too much or this goes in the wrong way. We also should somehow be curious and you know, open. We should liberate ourselves also, that if we might just, you know, start as also Freire says that, you know, liberation might just lead into other domination. And you know, so it's very important to keep open. But they are tricky questions, but I think that that, you know, when we have like real tasks to do, so then those also are driving us, and we need to work. We need to know the community. We need to know their mothers and fathers and all relations. We need to learn the traditional authorities, businesses, all that. So then it's, yeah, it's tricky and it's hard, and you get disappointed, but you also get surprised. But we should still do it. That's our calling.
Yes, thank you. There was John trying to join in.
It was just an observation, because it's been my perception that in the church, there are people who set up as prophets, and often what they have to say is shouting to a community that they don't belong to. So I just wanted to ask really about this, the role of a prophet belonging to a community, and even if much of what that prophet says is difficult or even rejected by that community, there has to be some notion of membership. Otherwise, you're just shouting over the wall. So I just wondered how that kind of works, because it seems to me in digital spaces, many of them are now becoming community spaces where you become a member of the community. And a problem with a Twitter is people shouting without belonging to any community at all. So I just wanted to reflect on that notion of prophecy and prophets belonging somewhere.
Thank you. Ray Lemuel, may I ask you to explore or explain a little bit more what you said in the chat? Is that possible?
It's basically similar to what John is saying. Right?
Yeah. Okay.
So belongingness and the idea of how you position yourself if you're coming from the outside, wanted to do something prophetic. I like your question, Ilona. Who actually give you the right to do certain things, right?
Yes, yes. Thank you. I would like to, if there is no one joining in with another question, I would like to open up our last round with a question. What about religion in all these discussions on digital cultures, digitalized cultures? Religion is not visible in all projects, but there was much existentialists or much many topics referring to existential questions, if we think of Rosy, for example. And may I ask you how you see the importance of religion for a digital culture? We started, or we have this opening session here at the moment for our conference on digital prophets and the prophets of the digital. And I mean, it's a specific way of explaining what is religion by using the term prophecy. And I would like to engage you to speak a little bit about your understanding of religion and yeah, the importance of religion for a digital culture.
Okay. If you want, I can add a thing.
Yes.
For me, no, religion is not necessarily visible in this moment and in this context. This is my choice. In my case, it was a very precise choice to apparently keep it out. If parole stili had been connoted religiously, I assure you that I wouldn't be here today to tell you about the viral nature of this project. Prejudice would have crushed him. Parole stili is a secular project shared with thousands of people united around a dream to make the web a better place. A place for discussion and dialogue without conflict. It is shared dreams has nothing to do, apparently, with God for others. For me, yes, but not for the other. Only without talking about God, I have really been able to reach everyone and in my own way talk about God and evangelical values such as respect, care for others, and trust. Then it is different if you add the Rosy streams as a person who is in love with God to all this. I have one more dream. As a person of faith, I have chosen to promote this project because I see it as a call in the digital world, which, in addition to needing kind words, would also need to meet God and give meaning to life. But in my heart, I am trying to live intensely the church that goes out to reach the existential peripheries of our society, to bring Jesus into the hearts of people who seek him and need him. Okay. Excuse me for my English, that is.
No,
Okay.
we're good. It was good to understand you.
Okay, this is a good question also, Ilona. I am, you know, in Namibia or in Africa, maybe also in general, religion is very much like a natural part of people's lives. And you know, and our street engineers bring it for, you know, quite openly. I think that Gideon, the grade 8 you know, dropout who gave the guest lecture at university, so he was very much referring to the love of God, that he gives him strength and courage to actually, you know, find new ways and not only be at the, you know, at, how do you say, not be dependent on these traditional healers or not be dependent of traditions, but you know, he can do what more or less, you know, God's love, if I might be over-interpreting, but you know, calls him to do. So I think that the strength and the courage, you know, they interpret it comes from God. And quite usually you also can hear people like saying that you were sent here by God. So to bring hope, and so it's just part of life. It's very, how could I say, ubiquitous, and it's not any kind of alien part of life. It's very natural, and I think that also, like, for I had 3 Finnish students, you know, staying, you know, with in Korihas the other time for like 5 weeks. I think that it was quite quite a cultural experience for them, actually, to be brought to prayers and everything, you know, like once a day, and you know, be greeted in God's name, you know, and being wished like blessed evening or blessed night or whatever. So it's very natural, and maybe also then, you know, I think that when you combine technology, the digital, to hands-on things, so it's not only like just on the screens or you know, something digital. It's also integrated with technology, robots, or it's integrated with arts or, you know, life. So it's quite holistic also, and you know, and then that means that you can easily integrate also the faith in what you are doing. It's very critical for these people to believe in reform and transformation.
Yes, thank you. Kike, do you like to follow up?
Yeah, thank you so much for the question, Ilona. And I was really touched by the question from John. This question about the belonging and how do we perceive ourselves in a time, I would say, in a time of post-digital, but also in a time of post-territorial church. I think the digital spaces, and I love one of the themes for the coming sessions about the primitive metaverse. I think the church really needs to question themselves, and us as a prophet, as prophets, we really need to embrace the ambiguity and the creativity that is there, calling us to build this church in a post-territorial time. From our side, religion is kind of visible. Even if we try to do different stuff, at the end, our readers, our users are always somehow aware that we speak from a religious perspective. But actually, we, in our community sessions, we did like a small acrostic or a small manifesto about what we understand as a healthy religion. And the acrostic is really simple. It's R for religions that reconnects you to the source. E, as the understanding of each faith is a window into God. L, love is its deepest calling. I, inclusive of all people. G, growing loving humans is its purpose. I, again, inward is its spirituality. O, outward is its action. And last, but really beautiful and powerful, I would say, N, non-duality is its highest teaching. And with this perspective of a healthy religion, it's the way we approach to our community and the way we try to present that there's a place for everyone in the table. It's an image that we always use in our dynamics and the things we create for really invite people, believers and non-believers, and our experience has been really good. Receiving messages and having participants in our gatherings from people that really feel that there is hope. And at the end, I would say, just to conclude, that the work of the prophet is that to bring hope back to concrete lives and concrete stories.
Thank you so much. Great answers. Thank you, all three of you, Rosy, Erkki, and Kike, for sharing these insights. I guess our time is now running out, but I feel that it was a very fruitful time to start the conference with these references to daily work and projects and how we can understand them. So thank you so much for doing this with us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I would like to give you